AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding after she called me a selfish bitch. I, 28F, have been best friends with Emma, 29F, for over 10 years. We met in college, and while we're very different in many ways, we've always had a strong bond. I'm more introverted and laid back, while Emma is outgoing, a bit dramatic, and has always been the center of attention. We've had our share of disagreements over the years, but we've always worked things out. Recently, Emma got engaged to her fiancé, Sam, 31M, and of course, I was ecstatic for her. Emma has always dreamed of having a huge, fairy tale wedding, and she's the type of person who would go all out for something like this. She started planning the wedding almost as soon as Sam proposed, and I was happy to be involved. I offered to help with anything I could, whether it was making DIY decorations, helping with her bridal shower, or even planning her bachelorette party. I wanted to be there for her, as a good best friend should. The problem started when Emma asked me to be one of her bridesmaids. At first, I was really honored and excited. I've never been a bridesmaid before, and I knew this was an important role in her life. However, when she told me what the duties would entail, I started feeling uneasy. Emma gave me a list of expectations that were way beyond what I had imagined. For starters, she wanted me to go dress shopping with her, which I was happy to do. But then she told me she expected me to pay for my own dress, shoes, hair, makeup, and a variety of other expenses that quickly added up. I'm not exactly rolling in money, so the thought of shelling out hundreds of dollars for a dress I'd wear only once was already stressing me out. I mentioned this to Emma and suggested that maybe she could find a more affordable dress for me, or at least help with some of the costs. She brushed it off, saying that this was a once-in-a-lifetime event, and I should just be willing to spend a little extra for her. As the wedding planning continued, things got even more intense. Emma sent me long texts with updates, making sure I was on top of everything and taking my role seriously. She even gave me a detailed itinerary for the day of the wedding, telling me where I needed to be at specific times and reminding me to look my best for the photos. On top of that, she insisted that I pay for a fancy hotel room the night before the wedding so we could have a girls' night and get ready together. I agreed to the hotel, but by this point, I was starting to feel overwhelmed. The final straw came when Emma asked me to attend her rehearsal dinner a week before the wedding. It wasn't that I didn't want to go, it's just that I had already made plans to visit my family for the weekend. I hadn't seen my parents in months, and they had planned a small get-together for me. When I told Emma about the conflict, she was furious. She accused me of being selfish and not prioritizing her special day. She said that I was ruining everything by choosing my family over her wedding rehearsal. I tried to explain that I needed time with my family and that I could still make it to the wedding, but she wasn't hearing any of it. She said that if I couldn't make it to the rehearsal, I shouldn't bother coming to the wedding at all. That's when she called me a selfish bitch. At this point, I felt absolutely crushed. I've always been there for Emma through thick and thin, and for her to call me that over one small scheduling conflict felt like a slap in the face. I tried reaching out to her, but she ignored my messages and kept sending passive-aggressive comments on social media about friends who only care about themselves. I was in complete shock that she would blow up over something so minor. After some soul-searching, I made the decision to not attend her wedding. I figured if she could call me a selfish bitch over something so small, I didn't want to be a part of her big day. I decided it wasn't worth putting myself through the emotional stress of attending her wedding if she wasn't willing to respect my needs and boundaries. I sent her a message explaining that I wouldn't be attending because I felt hurt by the way she treated me. I told her that I valued our friendship, but I couldn't go along with everything she was demanding. Emma hasn't spoken to me since, and she's been posting on social media about how she can't believe some people would abandon their friends over such trivial things. I've been feeling a little guilty, but at the same time, I don't think I did anything wrong. I was trying to balance my own life and responsibilities, and I don't think it was fair for her to expect so much from me. We've had a few mutual friends tell me that they understand why I didn't go, but I can't help but wonder if I overreacted. So, AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding after she called me a selfish bitch for not attending her rehearsal dinner. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot, and motivates me to create even more amazing content just for you. Make sure to turn on notifications so you'll never miss out on a new video. I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for your support. It truly helps the channel grow. AITA for refusing to pay for my friend's wedding dress after she went behind my back and bought a new one. I, 28F, have been friends with Sarah, 27F, for over 10 years. We've been through a lot together. High school, college, moving to different cities, all that stuff. I always considered her one of my best friends, and we've supported each other through thick and thin. A few months ago, she got engaged to her longtime boyfriend, Dave, 29M. I was super happy for her and immediately started helping with wedding planning when she asked. One of the things Sarah wanted for her wedding was for all of her bridesmaids to wear a specific dress. She found this beautiful dress at a local boutique, and she insisted that she wanted us all to wear it because it would match the vibe she was going for. The dress was expensive, about $500 each, which is a lot of money, but I understood how important it was to her, and I was happy to contribute to the wedding in that way. I had a few financial struggles leading up to the wedding. Unexpected medical bills, a few unexpected expenses, but I made sure I could afford the dress. I even bought accessories and shoes to match, so I would be ready for the big day. I've always made an effort to be supportive of Sarah's choices, even if they were sometimes on the extravagant side. She's always had expensive taste, but I love her and I wanted her to have the wedding of her dreams. Everything was going smoothly until a month ago when Sarah asked to meet up with me for coffee. She seemed a little off, but I didn't think much of it. When we met up, she started telling me about some changes she'd been considering for her wedding. She said she was thinking of getting a different dress for herself and had already bought a new one. This new dress was more expensive, around $3,000, and she was gushing about it. I was surprised. She had been so in love with the original dress she picked. When I asked her why she changed her mind, she said the first dress just didn't feel perfect for her anymore and that this new dress was the one she had always dreamed of. I was happy that she found something she loved, but then she dropped a bombshell. She told me she had bought the new dress and that it was already paid for, but the problem was she wanted me to buy the original dress she had picked for the bridesmaids. Apparently, she had changed her mind about the bridesmaid dress too and decided it didn't match her vision anymore. So, she wanted all of us to buy new dresses to match her new, more extravagant wedding dress. This was a shock to me. I had already paid for the original dress, and I assumed that was the one we were going to wear. Now, she was telling me that I needed to pay for a new dress, which was an additional $500. I was really put off by this, especially because Sarah didn't give me a heads up about her decision. She just expected me to go along with it, and I felt like I was being put in an awkward position. I told Sarah I wasn't comfortable buying a new dress. I explained that I had already made a financial commitment to the original dress and that I just couldn't afford to buy another one. She got upset, telling me that she understood I was going through a tough time financially, but that I should just make it work because it was her wedding. She said I had agreed to be in her wedding, and it would be really disappointing if I didn't follow through. I felt bad, but I stuck to my guns and said I wouldn't be able to afford a new dress. Sarah seemed frustrated, but didn't argue any further. Later that day, I thought I might have come off too harsh, but I still felt that my position was reasonable. I didn't want to spend another $500 when I had already committed that money to the first dress. A few days later, Sarah texted me, saying she had found a solution. She offered to gift me the original dress she picked out and wanted me to wear it for her wedding. It was a nice gesture, but at the same time, it felt like a way to manipulate me into buying the new dress. I wasn't sure if she was being genuine or just trying to make me feel guilty for not going along with her plans. I wasn't happy with how things had been handled, and I felt like Sarah was being selfish. I wasn't the only bridesmaid in the wedding, so I reached out to the other bridesmaids to see if they were also being asked to buy new dresses. Turns out, Sarah had already told the other bridesmaids that they had to pay for the new dresses too. None of them were happy about it, and a couple of them even considered dropping out of the wedding altogether. At this point, I was really upset. It seemed like Sarah had a vision of the perfect wedding, and that vision was costing us all a lot of money. She was asking us to drop hundreds of dollars on new dresses just because she changed her mind about her original choices. I wanted to be there for her, but I didn't want to be taken advantage of either. After talking to the other bridesmaids, we all decided to talk to Sarah as a group. We told her that we understood she wanted everything to be perfect, but that we felt like we were being asked to sacrifice too much. We all had different reasons for being uncomfortable with the situation. Some couldn't afford the new dresses, some felt like they were being put in an awkward position, and some were simply upset by the lack of consideration for our budgets. When we all confronted her, Sarah seemed to get defensive. She said she was just trying to make the wedding as beautiful as possible and that we should be supporting her. She said we were being unreasonable and didn't understand how much stress she was under with the wedding planning. At one point, she even suggested that we were being selfish and didn't care about her happiness. I felt torn. On one hand, I wanted to support my friend and help her have the wedding she wanted. But on the other hand, I felt like she was taking advantage of our friendship and asking for way too much. I stood my ground and told her that I wasn't willing to buy the new dress, and I wasn't going to feel guilty about it. A few days later, Sarah texted me to tell me she was disappointed in my decision and that it was really hurtful that I wasn't willing to make this small sacrifice for a big day. I felt like I'd been put in an impossible position, and now it seemed like Sarah was angry with me for setting boundaries. Now, I'm wondering if I was too harsh. AITA for refusing to pay for the new wedding dress and standing my ground on not wanting to buy a second one. Should I have just sucked it up and gone along with it to avoid conflict? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she's marrying my ex? So, I, 28F, have a bit of a complicated situation that I need some perspective on. My sister, 26F, and I have always had a pretty close relationship, but things started to get rocky a few years ago after a huge betrayal. I'll try to explain everything as clearly as I can, but please bear with me if it seems a bit long. I was in a long-term relationship with my ex, Adam, 29M, for almost 5 years. We met in college, and we were pretty much inseparable. We lived together, had plans for the future, and even talked about getting married someday. Things were great, or so I thought. Then, about 2 years ago, I found out that Adam had been cheating on me for about 6 months. It was absolutely devastating. I couldn't believe it, especially because I thought we had a solid foundation. I confronted him, and he admitted to it, but said he was sorry and that he didn't want to lose me. Of course, I ended the relationship. I was heartbroken, but I knew I couldn't stay with someone who would betray me like that. Fast forward a few months, and my sister and I had a huge falling out. At first, she was supportive of me during the breakup, but then I found out that she had been hanging out with Adam. I was furious, and I confronted her about it. She said that she just wanted to make sure he was okay after the breakup, and that they were just friends. But the more I dug into it, the more I realized that something wasn't right. She had been secretly meeting up with him behind my back. Eventually, I found out that they had started a romantic relationship. I was blindsided. It felt like a betrayal from both of them. My sister, who was supposed to have my back, and Adam, who was the person I trusted the most. I tried to talk to my sister about it, but she refused to see why I was upset. She said I was overreacting and that she wasn't going to let a past relationship dictate her own happiness. I told her that I felt like she was disrespecting me and that what they were doing was wrong, but she didn't see it that way. This caused a major rift between us, and we didn't speak for months. There were a lot of tears, arguments, and hurt feelings on both sides. I felt like I had lost 2 people I cared about, and she felt like I was trying to control her life. Eventually, we started to talk again, but things were never the same. It was hard for me to see her with Adam, and I couldn't understand how she could be with someone who had treated me so badly. Now, fast forward to present day. My sister is getting married to Adam. They've been together for almost 2 years now, and they're planning a wedding for this summer. She's been sending me wedding details and asking me to be a part of the ceremony. She wants me to be her maid of honor. In fact, I've been feeling incredibly conflicted about the whole thing. Part of me feels like I should be there for her because, well, she's my sister and I should support her. But another part of me feels like I'm being asked to celebrate a relationship that was built on betrayal. I can't get past the fact that she's marrying the man who cheated on me, and it feels like I'm being forced to forgive them both just because they're family. I've tried to talk to my sister about how I feel, but every time I bring it up, she brushes it off, saying I'm holding on to the past and that I need to let go. I've told her that I can't be a part of the wedding if she's marrying Adam, and that I don't feel comfortable attending, but she's been upset with me ever since. She says that I'm being childish and selfish, and that I'm ruining her special day. Here's the thing. I know she's an adult, and she's free to make her own decisions. But it feels like I'm being forced to just pretend like everything is fine and let her move on with someone who hurt me so deeply. I just can't bring myself to celebrate their relationship, especially considering how it started. I don't want to be fake, and I don't want to put myself in a situation where I have to pretend to be okay with everything. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she's marrying my ex? I feel like I'm being true to my feelings, but I also don't want to cause irreparable damage to my relationship with my sister. At the same time, I don't feel like I should be forced to forgive Adam just because my sister is in love with him now. What should I do here? AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after his fiancée demanded I change my hair. I, 27F, have a brother, Mark, 30M, and we've always had a good relationship. Growing up, we didn't have the closest bond, but as we got older, we became really good friends. Over the past few years, I've been the person he calls when he needs advice, and vice versa. When Mark got engaged to his fiancée, Clara, 28F, I was genuinely happy for them. Clara seemed sweet, and they were really good together, so I was looking forward to supporting them both throughout their engagement. However, everything started to go downhill a few months ago when Clara made a comment about my hair at one of the wedding planning events. Let me give you some background. My hair is naturally very curly and thick, and it takes a lot of work to maintain. Over the years, I've learned to love it, and I keep it long because I feel like it suits me. It's also kind of become my signature look. I've received a lot of compliments on it, and while I've never been obsessed with my appearance, I do take pride in the fact that I've learned to style and care for my hair in a way that makes me feel confident. Anyway, the issue started when Clara and I were chatting one day, and she mentioned the wedding and how she was envisioning everything. I was being supportive, asking her what kind of vibe she was going for, and she said she wanted something very elegant and refined. Then, out of nowhere, Clara says, I was thinking it would be great if you could do something different with your hair for the wedding. It's so big and wild, and it might not fit the vibe I'm going for. Maybe you could straighten it or get a sleek updo or something more polished. I was taken aback. My hair is a part of me, and it's always been something I've embraced. I didn't think it was wild or unpolished, but maybe she had a different vision for her big day. I was a little shocked, but I brushed it off and didn't think much of it. At first, I figured maybe she was just nervous about everything and making random suggestions. Then, a few weeks later, Clara brought it up again. She started asking more pointed questions about my hair. Have you thought about what you're going to do with it yet? It's just that, I really want everything to look cohesive. She went on to explain that she wanted every bridesmaid to have a certain look, and she suggested that I rethink my style to match the elegant, classic vibe she envisioned for the wedding. I don't want to sound offensive, but this was really starting to get under my skin. I felt like she was criticizing a big part of who I am, especially since she'd only met me a few times before the engagement. I tried to be polite and said, well, I don't really want to change my hair. I've spent years learning to love it, and it's something that makes me feel confident. But I'm happy to talk about it more if you want me to try something different. She didn't really seem to understand my perspective. She insisted that she wasn't trying to be rude, but that the hair would clash with her aesthetic. The thing is, I've been to plenty of weddings with a variety of different looks and hairstyles. Why should my hair be a problem? I'm a grown adult. It's not like I was showing up with bedhead or anything. The tension built up over the following weeks. Mark had mentioned that Clara was starting to get really stressed out about the wedding and that she was nitpicking every little detail, but I didn't think it would extend to me and my hair. But sure enough, one day when we were all at their place, Clara just blurted out, I really need you to change your hair for the wedding. It's just a huge distraction. I can't have everyone's look be so different from mine. That's when I lost it. I tried to stay calm, but I couldn't. I told her, I'm sorry, but I've been very clear with you about this. My hair is not up for discussion. I'm happy to support you on your big day, but I won't change who I am for anyone. Clara looked stunned, and Mark was quiet. He didn't really say anything during the conversation, which frustrated me even more. I felt like he should have been the one to step in and tell Clara to stop being so unreasonable, but he didn't. After the conversation, things were a bit awkward. Clara didn't speak to me much, and Mark kept texting me asking me to just let it go and don't make a big deal out of it. I don't think he understands why this is such an issue for me. To him, it's just hair, but to me, it feels like an attack on my identity. I started second-guessing everything. Should I be compromising for the wedding? I've always tried to be accommodating, but this felt like a step too far. I'm not changing my hair for anyone, especially not for someone I barely know and who has shown no respect for my personal choices. Now, Mark is furious with me. He said I'm being selfish and making his wedding about me. He even implied that I'm being disrespectful to Clara by refusing to make this small change. I honestly feel like I've been more than patient with the whole situation, and I don't think it's unreasonable to not want to be forced into changing something so personal. But now, I'm considering whether I've gone too far. I'm hurt by the way Mark is handling this, but I'm also hurt by Clara's constant criticism. I've asked my friend for their opinions, and some of them think I should just suck it up and straighten my hair for one day. Others agree with me and think I should stand my ground because it's my body and my look. So, AITA for refusing to change my hair for my brother's wedding, even if it's causing tension with my family. AITA for refusing to help my sister-in-law after she ruined my wedding. So this situation has been causing a lot of drama within my family, and I need some outside perspective. I'll try to give all the details so it makes sense, but I apologize in advance if I ramble. I, 29F, recently got married to my husband, Jake, 32M. We've been together for 5 years, and our wedding was something we had been planning for nearly 2 years. We were trying to make it special, but also not break the bank. So we kept it pretty intimate, around 100 guests, mostly close family and a few friends. Everything was going smoothly, until my sister-in-law, Sarah, 34F, decided to insert herself into the planning in a way that caused a lot of unnecessary stress. Now, let me give a bit of background on Sarah. She's always been a bit dramatic. She has a habit of making everything about herself, and honestly, she tends to overshadow other people's events. My husband and I were hesitant about having her as part of our wedding because we knew her history of creating unnecessary chaos. But in the end, we decided to invite her, hoping that she would be respectful and let us have our moment. We had our wedding venue locked down months in advance. It was at a beautiful outdoor location with a reception hall that had been booked for almost a year. It was the one place we both loved, and we felt it was the perfect setting for our ceremony. But after the invitations had been sent out, Sarah started making unsolicited suggestions. She offered to help plan, saying that she had experience from her own wedding, which, by the way, was 10 years ago and a total disaster. But that's another story. At first, I tried to be gracious, thinking maybe she was just excited and wanted to contribute. But the more I let her help, the more she started taking control. She insisted on choosing certain vendors, a few of whom I wasn't particularly fond of, but I didn't want to cause friction, so I reluctantly agreed. She also insisted on giving me her expert opinion on my dress, which she didn't like. To be honest, I started feeling like my own wedding was slowly becoming more about her than about us. But the real trouble started when she suggested a change to our wedding date. Now, my wedding was booked for a Saturday, and it was the perfect timing for our guests, most of whom lived in other states. But Sarah came to me about 2 months before the big day and said that she had just realized a close friend of hers was getting married the same weekend, and her friend would be upset if Sarah missed it. So, she wanted to know if we could shift the wedding to a Friday or a Sunday. I was taken aback because this was so last minute, and I had already spent so much time making arrangements. I said no. I told her that the date was set, and we had already made everything final with the venue, guests, and other logistics. She was upset, but tried to push it. Eventually, I stood my ground, and she backed off, though it was clear she wasn't happy with my decision. However, the real breaking point came a week before the wedding. I had just finished finalizing all the last-minute details, and we were in full prep mode. The wedding was going to be at an outdoor venue, which meant a few things had to be coordinated with the weather and the reception hall. Everything was looking good. Then, Sarah shows up at the rehearsal dinner and starts criticizing my wedding. She pointed out everything she thought was wrong, from the seating arrangement to the decorations, the food choices, and even the music playlist I'd spent weeks curating. At first, I thought maybe she was joking, but no, she was serious. She went on and on about how things could be improved and how she had some great ideas. The night before the wedding, I got a call from my mom. Apparently, Sarah had been talking to some of the other guests behind my back and telling them about all the flaws in the wedding plans. I was livid. My mom tried to calm me down, but I was absolutely furious that Sarah was not only ruining my big day, but also causing tension between my family and guests. I ended up sending Sarah a message that night, telling her that she was not to come near the wedding unless she was going to be respectful. She tried to apologize, but at that point I was done. The next day, the wedding went as planned, minus Sarah. I didn't want to create any more drama, so I didn't make a huge deal out of her absence. But the day after the wedding, the texts started coming in from her. She was furious that I had excluded her and told me I had embarrassed her in front of the family. Apparently, she was upset that I'd ruined her opportunity to have a good time. She also claimed that I was being overdramatic and that it wasn't a big deal that she wanted to make a few changes. Now, I feel guilty. I know I had every right to stand up for myself, but I'm also wondering if I could have handled things better. She's family, after all, and I feel like maybe I could have just let her have a little more say. But every time I think about it, I just get angry all over again. I'm still upset that she made the entire wedding about her and didn't respect my wishes. It feels like she was trying to make it her event, and I just wasn't okay with that. My husband has been very supportive, telling me that I made the right choice, but I know there's still tension. His family is divided, with some members taking Sarah's side and others agreeing with me. I'm really not sure how to handle this moving forward. I've always been a keep the peace kind of person, but in this case, I just couldn't. AITA for refusing to help my sister-in-law after everything she did? Please let me know if I'm being unreasonable here. AITA for telling my friend I won't be part of her wedding after she asked me to be her maid of honor, then changed her mind because I didn't meet her expectations. So I, 28F, have been friends with Karen, 29F, for years. We met in college, and our friendship has always been close, but also a bit chaotic. Karen is one of those people who's a perfectionist to a fault, and it seems like every time we hang out, there's a chance she'll want to rehash every little detail of her life to make sure everything is just right. Still, she's my best friend, and we've been through a lot together, so when she asked me to be her maid of honor, I was thrilled. Now, to give you some background, Karen and I come from very different family dynamics. My family is small but supportive, and while we don't have a ton of money, we always make do. Her family, on the other hand, is rich, demanding, and honestly a little pretentious. It's not like I hate her family, but sometimes it feels like I'm constantly trying to measure up to their standards, which has always been a bit draining. Still, I've done my best to be there for her, even when her family was less than welcoming toward me. Anyway, Karen got engaged about 6 months ago, and I was over the moon when she asked me to be her maid of honor. I thought it would be an amazing experience, and I knew she would expect a lot from me, but I was ready to step up and support her. The wedding was set for this summer, so I started planning right away. I helped her pick out bridesmaid dresses, organize the bridal shower, and was there for every little detail, even though I could already tell she was being a little more high-strung than usual. A couple of weeks ago, Karen called me in a panic, saying that she needed to talk. She came over, and I could tell something was off. She sat me down and said that she had been thinking a lot about the wedding, and after careful consideration, she felt that I wasn't meeting her expectations for being the maid of honor. I was shocked and asked her to explain. She told me that while I'd been helping, I wasn't doing enough to elevate the experience. She specifically mentioned that I wasn't putting myself out there enough for her wedding. What this meant, she said, was that I wasn't going above and beyond like the other bridesmaids, who were offering more help with small details like decorations, planning her bachelorette party, and helping her pick out gifts for the guests. At first, I didn't really understand what she was talking about. I mean, I've been working full-time, helping my family with a lot of personal matters. My mom has been sick, and I've been doing everything I can to support her within the boundaries of my own life. I also assumed that maid of honor meant that I was supposed to take on more of the emotional and moral support role. I didn't expect to be in charge of every single thing. But Karen wasn't having it. She said that other bridesmaids had gone above and beyond, and she felt like I was slacking. I was honestly taken aback by this, especially because we had already been through a lot together, and I thought I was doing my best. I even reminded her that I had been juggling a lot with family stuff, and I hadn't been neglecting her, just focusing on the important things. But it didn't seem to matter. She went on to say that she needed someone who would bring energy and a positive attitude to all the wedding events, and that I wasn't fulfilling that role. I was absolutely floored. I have been trying to be as supportive as I can, but apparently my efforts weren't enough. She said, maybe I should just choose someone else who would really be able to put in the time and energy to make my wedding perfect. At that point, I felt like my heart had dropped into my stomach. She was literally telling me she didn't want me to be her maid of honor anymore. It wasn't even that she was asking me to do more. It was that she felt like I wasn't living up to her vision for her wedding, and because of that, she thought I wasn't good enough for the role. I asked her if she was really saying that, and she confirmed it. I tried to keep calm, but I was hurt. I've supported Karen through so much, and this just felt like a slap in the face. I told her that if she didn't think I was fulfilling her expectations, then maybe it was better if I stepped down completely, rather than her continuing to feel disappointed in me. I said that maybe I wasn't the right person for this role after all, and I didn't want to keep trying to be someone I wasn't. We both sat in silence for a few moments, and then she told me she was sorry. She said she wasn't sure what she was expecting and that I had been so helpful, but it was clear I wasn't meeting her standards in a way that felt right to her. I told her I couldn't be part of a wedding that made me feel like I wasn't enough. I said I needed space, and I couldn't be involved if it meant constantly disappointing her. Then I left. Since then, Karen hasn't reached out to me. I texted her a couple of times to ask if we could talk, but she hasn't responded. Some of my other friends have told me I should have been more understanding and tried harder to meet her expectations, but I'm honestly not sure I could have done more. I've been trying to balance everything in my life, and I don't think it's fair for her to expect me to give up my own well-being to make her wedding exactly as she envisioned. I'm struggling because on one hand, I don't want to lose my best friend, but on the other hand, I feel like she doesn't value me as a person beyond what I can do for her wedding. I'm also angry that she wasn't upfront about her expectations sooner. I tried so hard to be there for her, but it feels like it was never enough. So, AITA for stepping away from her wedding after she told me I wasn't meeting her expectations. AITA for kicking my sister out after she repeatedly disrespected my boundaries and my house rules. So, some context. I, 29F, live in a house with my husband, 30M, and our 2 kids, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. We've been married for 6 years, and while things have been pretty smooth, my sister, 32F, has always had this tendency to push boundaries, which has caused a lot of tension over the years. About 2 months ago, my sister went through a tough breakup, and since then, she's been staying with us temporarily. I'm a family-oriented person, and I wanted to help her out. She had nowhere else to go, and we thought it'd be a good opportunity for her to get back on her feet. She's always been close to my kids, and I figure it wouldn't be a problem. However, it turned into one quickly. I'll admit, I didn't set clear boundaries from the beginning, thinking that it would be a short stay. I was just trying to be supportive. But as time passed, she started to take advantage of the situation, and I'm honestly fed up with it now. Here's where things started to go downhill. 1. Household rules. From the start, my husband and I have had certain rules in place for our house, especially regarding our kids and general respect for the space. For example, we ask people not to leave food crumbs or dishes lying around, keep noise levels down when the kids are napping, and don't walk around in front of the kids in revealing clothing. This is important to us, and we've always enforced it. My sister, though, completely ignored these rules. She'd leave food everywhere, never clean up after herself, and on multiple occasions, she'd walk around the house in her underwear or a very revealing robe when the kids were awake. When I politely told her to change into something more appropriate, she'd get defensive and say, "It's just my body," or "They're just kids, they won't care." But it wasn't just about the kids. It's about respect for the house and our comfort level, too. 2. Personal space. We've always kept our bedroom a private space. Our kids play in the living room, but when it's time for us to wind down, We need our personal space. My sister, however, would frequently come into our bedroom without knocking, plopping down on our bed to talk or watch TV. One day, she even helped herself to some of my clothes without asking. I asked her, politely, to respect the boundaries of our bedroom, but she acted as if I was being unreasonable. 3. Disrespecting my husband. While I didn't want to make a big deal at first, I noticed that my sister started undermining my husband in subtle ways. She would make comments like, "Oh, I don't know why you let her handle everything," or, "I think it'd be better if you did this your way." It seemed like she was trying to make him look bad, which I found incredibly disrespectful. When I mentioned this to her, she said, "I'm just trying to help, and you need to stop being so sensitive." I confronted my husband about it, and he said he didn't want to escalate anything since she was going through a tough time, but he also felt uncomfortable around her. 4. The breaking point. The real issue came about a week ago. I had a particularly rough day. The kids were sick, I had a ton of work to do, and I was really struggling. I hadn't had a moment to myself in days. I asked my sister if she could watch the kids for an hour, so I could take a bath and just relax for a bit. She agreed, but then, about 15 minutes in, came into the bathroom without knocking, saying she was worried about the kids. When I told her I needed some alone time and that it was a simple request, she went off. She said I was being ridiculous, that I couldn't expect her to babysit all the time, and that I was acting entitled. I snapped. I told her that I had been nothing but accommodating, and it was time for her to leave. She was taken aback and tried to argue, saying that it was her house too, but I stood my ground. I said if she couldn't respect the basic rules of our home and my personal space, she needed to leave. She didn't pack up immediately, though. Instead, she went into the living room and started calling our mom, telling her how I had betrayed her. I didn't really want to get into it, so I told her she had 24 hours to find a place to stay. 5. The aftermath. It's been a week, and my family has been divided. My parents are upset with me for kicking her out, saying I could have handled it better. My mom especially keeps telling me that I should have been more patient with her, given her emotional state. But honestly, I feel like I've done everything I could. I try to set boundaries. I've been more than generous with my time and space, and I made it clear how uncomfortable her behavior was. I don't think I should have to tolerate being disrespected in my own home, no matter what she's going through. My husband agrees with me, and he's supportive, but my sister's upset, and now the rest of my family is questioning my decision. They think I should have given her more time or tried harder to understand her. AITA for kicking my sister out. Or was I being too harsh? AITA for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding after he insisted on having it on my birthday? So to give you some context, I, 28F, have a brother, Max, 32M. We've always had a pretty close relationship, but over the past few years, we've definitely had our fair share of ups and downs, especially with him getting more serious about his now-fiancée, Rachel, 30F. Here's the issue. Max and Rachel recently got engaged, and while I was really happy for them, things took a turn when they announced the date for the wedding. Max made a big deal about how perfect it was because it would be on a long weekend and they'd be able to get a great deal on the venue, etc. However, I quickly realized that the date they picked was my birthday, exactly. As in, the wedding was scheduled for the same day as my birthday. Now, I have always been very vocal about my birthday being a big deal to me. I know some people think birthdays are just another day, but I've always loved celebrating mine with my family. It's kind of a tradition to do something fun, whether it's a dinner or a day trip, and I expect that my family will at least acknowledge it. I've never made a big deal out of it, but it's always been something special to me. When I asked Max why he chose that date, his response was essentially, why not? It's a long weekend, and it's convenient for us. It's not like you're going to do anything big for your birthday anyway. This definitely rubbed me the wrong way, but I didn't want to cause a scene, so I brushed it off, assuming that he might change his mind. Well, a couple of months passed, and I started realizing that there was no sign of him changing the date. It was locked in. That's when the real issues began. I started talking to my parents about it, and they were really passive about the whole situation. My mom kind of dismissed my feelings, saying, "It's a wedding, honey. You can celebrate your birthday another time." And my dad seemed to think I was overreacting. But for me, this felt like a big deal. I felt like my brother was disregarding something important to me in favor of his own convenience, and that really stung. To make matters worse, a few weeks before the wedding, Max told me that he was expecting me to help pay for the event. Apparently, they had gone over their budget, and they were asking all their close family members to pitch in. He didn't say how much, but knowing weddings, it could be a significant amount. I was already upset that he was getting married on my birthday, but now he was also asking for money. I was a bit floored by that. I told him I would have to think about it, but the more I thought about it, the more frustrated I became. First, he had picked the date without consulting me. Second, he had made no effort to even acknowledge how this would affect me emotionally. And now he was asking for money on top of it all. I felt like he was being incredibly selfish, and the whole thing was starting to feel less like a celebration of his love for Rachel and more like him using his family to make his life easier. I talked to a few friends about it, and they were split. Some thought I should just suck it up and contribute because it was his wedding, and that's what family does. But others agreed that it was inconsiderate of him to expect me to celebrate his wedding on the same day as my birthday, let alone pay for it. I really struggled with it. I've always been the kind of person who doesn't want to cause tension in the family, but at the same time, I couldn't ignore how hurt I felt. Eventually, I called Max and told him I wouldn't be contributing financially to the wedding. I explained that I felt uncomfortable about the date, that it was my birthday, and that I couldn't justify paying for an event that I felt was so inconsiderate. I told him I would be happy to attend, but I couldn't put money toward it, especially since it was the same day as my birthday. He didn't take it well. He started accusing me of being selfish and of not supporting him. He said that if I couldn't put my feelings aside for one day to celebrate him, then I wasn't being a good sister. He even mentioned that it was a bit of a stretch for me to be upset about the date when I knew they were trying to save money. This is where I really started questioning if I was in the wrong. I know weddings are expensive, and I understand that it's a special day for him and Rachel. But the fact that he wasn't even willing to consider how his actions would affect me, not just emotionally but financially, made me feel like he was prioritizing his own convenience over my feelings. And to top it off, he had the audacity to expect me to pay for a portion of it. Now, the rest of the family has been pulling me aside and telling me I should just let it go and pay. My mom said I was being childish about it, and my dad said I should be happy to help my brother out. Even Rachel sent me a message saying that she hoped I wouldn't let the date get in the way of our relationship. I'm honestly feeling overwhelmed and isolated, but at the same time, I feel like I'm being asked to give up something important to me just to make everyone else happy. I've been feeling torn. I love my brother, but this whole situation just doesn't sit right with me. I want to be supportive, but I also want to stand up for my own needs. So, AITA for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding after he insisted on having it on my birthday? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what could be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for not attending my best friend's wedding because she didn't invite my fiancé. I, 28M, have been friends with Emily, 27F, for about 12 years. We've been through a lot together, and I considered her to be one of my closest and most trusted friends. Over the years, we've always been there for each other, and I've been to every major event she's had. Her birthday parties, her college graduation, her other celebrations, and just every little thing that mattered to her. So, when she got engaged last year, I was thrilled for her. Emily and her fiancé, Jake, have been dating for about 3 years, and I knew she was over the moon about the engagement. We all hung out together often, and things seemed great. I didn't think anything would change between us, but it did. A few months ago, Emily invited me to her wedding, which is set for this summer. I was naturally excited for her and immediately RSVP'd. But then, about a week later, she texted me saying that there was something important she needed to talk to me about regarding the wedding. When I called her, she told me that she had to trim the guest list because of budget constraints, and unfortunately, she couldn't invite my fiancée, Claire, 29F, to the wedding. She said it wasn't personal, but that she and Jake had decided to only invite people they were really close to, and they didn't feel that they knew Claire well enough yet. I was taken aback. Claire and I have been together for over 4 years. She and Emily had met multiple times, and although they weren't best friends, they had always gotten along. Claire had even attended Emily's birthday party last year. I told Emily that I understood the need for a smaller guest list, but it didn't make sense to me that Claire, someone who I'm planning to spend my life with, wouldn't be invited to the wedding. Emily assured me that it wasn't meant to be hurtful and that I could come solo, but I was really upset. I sat on it for a few days, discussing it with Claire, who was understandably hurt. She wasn't asking for a front row seat at the wedding, but she felt excluded, especially because of how much I'd meant to Emily and how often we had hung out as a group. Claire didn't want to make things awkward, but she did mention that if she wasn't invited, maybe I should reconsider going at all. At first, I thought she was being overly sensitive, but the more I thought about it, the more it felt wrong to go without her. I had already told Emily that I wasn't comfortable with the situation. I said that if Claire couldn't come, I wouldn't attend either. I was clear with Emily that this was a deal breaker for me. She begged me to reconsider, telling me that her wedding was a once-in-a-lifetime event, and it wouldn't be the same without me there. She even offered to let Claire come to the ceremony, but not the reception, which I felt was a half measure and still unfair. I stuck to my guns and said no. I couldn't imagine going to my best friend's wedding while my fiancée was left out, especially when I didn't feel like she had done anything to deserve that. I told Emily that I was sorry, but I wouldn't be attending the wedding if Claire wasn't invited, and she could either accept that or I wouldn't be a part of it. I expected Emily to be understanding, but she got really upset, accusing me of making the situation about myself instead of supporting her on her big day. She said I was overreacting and that it was just a wedding and I needed to get over it. She even hinted that I was putting my fiancé over our longtime friendship. I know weddings can be stressful and that she probably has a lot on her plate, but I feel like my position is reasonable. I don't want to attend an event where my fiancé is excluded when she's a huge part of my life. It feels like a betrayal of our relationship. After all, if she's my partner, I don't see how I could go and celebrate such a big day without her. Since then, Emily and I have barely spoken. She hasn't reached out to apologize, and I haven't budged on my decision. I feel conflicted because I do care about her, but I also care about my relationship with Claire. I don't want to lose Emily, but I also don't want to feel like I'm compromising my principles. At this point, I'm starting to wonder if I'm being unreasonable. I know weddings are supposed to be about the couple, but I don't think it's asking too much to want my fiancé to be included. AITA for choosing not to attend my best friend's wedding if my fiancé isn't invited. AITA for not letting my sister move in with me after her divorce. I, 29M, am in a bit of a tricky situation with my sister, 32F, and I really don't know if I'm the asshole here. Here's the deal. My sister recently got divorced after being married for 7 years. She's always been a bit of a free spirit, but her ex was a good guy. The divorce came out of nowhere. They were planning to have kids, but I guess things changed, and now she's back at square one. She came to me about a month ago and asked if she could move in with me. She explained that her divorce left her in a tough spot financially, and she didn't want to move back in with our parents because it would be too much for them to handle. I'm really close to my parents, and I get where she's coming from. She was living in an apartment with her ex, but now she can't afford it on her own, and she doesn't want to be stuck in a small apartment that reminds her of the whole divorce situation. At first, I agreed to let her stay temporarily, maybe a couple of weeks. She's my sister, and I want to support her. But here's the thing. We've always had a pretty tense relationship. Growing up, she was the golden child. My parents were always focused on her, and I always felt like I was the one getting left behind. I'm not saying I had a horrible childhood, but she was always the favorite. She was the one who got the praise, the support, the attention. I was just there. I don't want to sound petty, but I've spent a lot of years dealing with that sense of being overlooked. I don't think my parents did intentionally, but it was always her and not me. Now, as an adult, I've built my own life, and I'm in a good place. I work a steady job, live in a comfortable house, and I've got my routine. I'm also a pretty private person. I like my space. So, when my sister asked to move in, I wasn't thrilled, but I said yes because she's family and I didn't want to leave her stranded. However, as soon as she moved in, things started to get awkward. She would leave her stuff everywhere, take up all the space in the bathroom, and constantly complain about how hard her life was. I get that she's going through a tough time, but it felt like she was constantly making the house feel like hers. She'd throw her laundry around, leave dirty dishes everywhere, and never offer to help with any of the chores. I started feeling like I was living with a roommate who had no respect for my space, but I kept biting my tongue because I didn't want to cause drama. Then, about 2 weeks in, she asked if she could stay longer. I told her that I was okay with her being here for another couple of weeks, but after that, I needed her to find a place. I made it clear that I wasn't comfortable with her staying long-term because it was affecting my routine, my mental space, and my own peace of mind. She was upset, but said she understood. But then, she started getting passive-aggressive. She'd leave little notes on the fridge saying things like, "It's hard to heal when you're alone," or "Thanks for the help, but I'm not sure how much longer I can make it." I was starting to get fed up. I never asked for this, and while I want to be there for her, I don't think I should have to sacrifice my happiness for it. I told her again that she needed to find another living situation and that I was happy to help her look for apartments or whatever, but she couldn't stay indefinitely. She started getting angry and accused me of being unsupportive. She said I was just like our parents, putting my own needs before hers, and I was too selfish to help her when she really needed it. It really hurt me because I wasn't trying to be cruel. I just don't think it's fair to disrupt my entire life because she's going through a difficult time. Now she's refusing to talk to me, and it's been weeks. She said she doesn't want to come over for any family events anymore because she feels unwanted and abandoned. Our parents are upset with me, too, saying I should just let her stay longer and that I'm being harsh. But I don't think I'm being unreasonable. I've tried to explain that I need my space, but no one seems to understand. So, AITA for telling my sister she needs to move out after her divorce. I know she's going through a tough time, but it's hard for me to keep giving when it feels like no one respects my boundaries. AITA for not paying my sister back after she borrowed money from me for her wedding. So, some context. I, 27F, have an older sister, Claire, 32F. We've always had a bit of a rocky relationship, to be honest. Growing up, she was the golden child. My parents always praised her for her academic achievements, extracurricular activities, and general popularity. I was always the other daughter. I'm not saying they neglected me or anything, but I definitely wasn't the first priority. I think that's where the tension began. Over the years, Claire and I grew more distant. She was always busy with her own life and friends, and I focused on mine. We weren't enemies, but we weren't close either. Fast forward to a few months ago, Claire got engaged. At first, I was happy for her. Weddings are supposed to be a happy occasion, right? But then things started to get weird. She reached out to me a few weeks later, asking if I could lend her some money for her wedding. She said her fiancé's family wasn't contributing, and she was having trouble making ends meet for everything she wanted. At first, I didn't think much of it. I didn't want to cause any issues and figured it was a one-time thing. She asked for $5,000. It seemed like a lot, but I agreed to lend it to her. I've always been in a stable financial situation, so I thought it wouldn't be a big deal. But then it got worse. Not only was the wedding more extravagant than I'd expected, but Claire started asking for more and more. First, it was another $2,000 for the venue deposit. Then it was $1,500 for extra decorations. She said it was for the perfect wedding and promised she'd pay me back as soon as everything was settled. Each time, I agreed, thinking it was just temporary and that I'd get it back when she was finally married. By the time the wedding rolled around, I had lent her a total of $8,500. And you know what? I didn't get a thank you. She didn't even mention paying me back on the day of the wedding. She was too busy being the center of attention, which, fair enough. But when I asked her after the wedding when I could expect the money, she told me that things were tight and that she needed to pay off some other things first and that she'd get to me as soon as possible. I was frustrated, but I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. Time passed, and the months went by. Claire would make excuses whenever I brought up the money. At one point, she said she couldn't pay me back because she had to buy furniture for her new home with her husband. Another time, she told me that her car broke down and she needed to fix it. Every time, I let it slide because I figured things would work out eventually. But now, nearly 8 months later, she still hasn't paid me a dime. In fact, I started to notice that her lifestyle was still very lavish. She posted multiple pictures of fancy vacations with her husband, designer clothes, and nights out with friends. It seemed like they were living it up, but when I asked about the money again, Claire got defensive. She said I was being unreasonable and that I should understand that she was trying to enjoy her life. She even went so far as to say that my constant asking was putting a strain on our relationship. At this point, I was pissed off. I don't have a problem with her enjoying herself, but it feels like she's prioritizing her own luxuries over repaying me. So, I finally told her that I needed the money back now. She got mad and accused me of being petty and holding money over her head, claiming that I was ruining her marriage by being so demanding. I've tried to stay calm and reasonable about it, but I'm really starting to lose my patience. I feel like I've been more than generous with her, and she's taking advantage of me. I don't want to start a family war, but I also don't want to be walked all over. So, am I the asshole for demanding the money back? Or am I being unreasonable considering the fact that it was for her wedding? Will I be wrong for cutting her off if she doesn't pay me back soon? I really don't know what to do at this point. AITA for telling my sister that she's not welcome at my wedding after she pulled a stunt with my fiancé. I, 29F, am getting married to the love of my life, Jake, 30M, in a few months. We've been together for about 5 years, and we're both really excited to start this next chapter of our lives. We're having a pretty traditional wedding, nothing too fancy, but I've always dreamed of having a beautiful day with my closest friends and family, and it's something I've been planning for over a year now. I have a sister, Emily, 26F, who I've always been very close to. Growing up, we fought like most siblings do, but we've always had each other's backs. However, lately, things have been a little tense between us. I don't know if it's the wedding planning or if something else is going on, but there's been some friction. I noticed a few months ago that Emily has been making a lot of comments about my relationship with Jake. At first, it was just small things like, "Are you sure he's the one?" Or "You don't think you're rushing things, do you?" I brushed it off because, siblings can be a little overprotective sometimes. But then it started to get a bit more intense. She started saying things like, "I don't know, I don't think he's your type," or "I don't think you two make sense together." Jake and I laughed it off at first, but after a while, I started to get frustrated. Why was she suddenly so negative about him? She never said anything like that before, and Jake is genuinely one of the kindest, most supportive people I know. We were both confused about where it was coming from, especially because Emily had never really had an issue with him before. The real problem came up a few weeks ago when Emily decided to call my fiancé behind my back. She left him a voicemail, which I found out about when Jake showed it to me. In the message, she basically told him, "I just want to make sure you're not taking advantage of my sister. She's a great person, and she deserves the best. I'm watching you, and if you hurt her, I'll be the first to know." She went on like that for several minutes. Jake was understandably upset. He said he felt like it was a major invasion of privacy and that it really hurt him. I was equally upset, but I wanted to handle it calmly, so I called Emily right away. When I confronted her about the voicemail, she was immediately defensive, saying she was just looking out for me. She claimed that she was concerned about Jake and wanted to make sure he had good intentions. I told her that what she did was not okay, that she had no right to go behind my back and confront Jake in that way, and that her behavior was borderline manipulative. She brushed it off and said she was just protecting me and that I should be grateful. But I didn't feel grateful. I felt like she was disrespecting my relationship and trying to drive a wedge between Jake and me. At that point, I told her that she needed to apologize, and if she couldn't respect my relationship, I would consider cutting her out of the wedding. She didn't apologize, not even close. Instead, she started saying that I was overreacting and that I was being too sensitive. She implied that I was being naive about Jake, and that maybe I was blinded by love. It was honestly like she was trying to make me doubt my own judgment, which really pissed me off. The whole situation left me feeling hurt and angry. I spent a lot of time thinking about it and talking it through with Jake, and we both agreed that Emily's actions weren't just a misunderstanding. They were a clear attempt to undermine our relationship. I had no idea what her motives were, but it seemed like she was trying to create drama for the sake of it. A few days later, I decided to sit down with Emily and have a serious conversation. I told her that I could not allow this behavior to continue, especially not with my wedding day approaching. I said that if she couldn't apologize for what she did and show some respect for my relationship with Jake, then she wouldn't be invited to the wedding. I also told her that I needed her to either be supportive or stay out of it, but I didn't have the emotional energy to deal with this kind of negativity. She completely lost it. She called me selfish, said I was choosing him over family, and accused me of throwing away our relationship just because of one disagreement. She said that she was hurt by my decision, but that I would regret it later when she wasn't there. I told her that I wasn't choosing Jake over her, but that I couldn't allow someone to continuously disrespect my relationship and expect to be part of such an important day. That was about a week ago, and things have been really tense. Emily has told the rest of the family about the situation, and now my parents are upset with me too. They think I'm being too harsh, and they're pressuring me to just let it go and be the bigger person. They say I'm going to regret alienating Emily over a silly misunderstanding, but I don't see it that way. It's not just about the voicemail. It's about the lack of respect and the constant undermining of my relationship. Now, I'm left wondering if I've gone too far. I don't want to lose my sister, but I also don't want to allow someone who's treating me this way to be part of such an important day. I've tried to explain to my parents that this isn't a small issue, but they just don't seem to get it. I'm starting to feel like I'm the one in the wrong, but at the same time, I don't think I should be forced to choose between my sister and my fiancé. So, AITA for telling my sister she's not welcome at my wedding. AITA for refusing to help my brother after he got himself in a debt by buying an expensive car. I, 27F, have a brother, Jake, 24M, who has always been a bit of show-off. He's the kind of person who thrives on appearances and has a tendency to buy expensive things just to keep up with others, even if it's financially irresponsible. For a long time, I've had a feeling he might get himself into trouble with his spending habits, and unfortunately, it seems like I was right. Here's the situation. About 6 months ago, Jake bought a brand new car, a luxury sports car. I won't go into too many details about the make and model, but suffice to say, it was a very high-end vehicle with a hefty price tag. When I asked him about it, he told me he'd taken out a loan to cover the down payment and would be paying it off over time. He made a big deal out of the fact that the car was an investment and that it was worth the price because it would maintain its value over time. At the time, I didn't get too involved in the decision, but I did express my concern. I mentioned that he should be careful about taking on such a big financial burden, especially since he didn't have a stable income or a solid plan for the future. He just brushed it off, saying I didn't understand and that he was doing fine. Fast forward to a few months later, and Jake started asking me for money. First, it was small amounts, just a couple $100s here and there. He told me he had some unexpected expenses and that he wasn't able to make his car payments. I gave him the benefit of the doubt and helped him out, thinking maybe he'd mismanaged his budget or had some short-term issues. But then it started happening more frequently. He began asking for larger sums, sometimes $1,000 or more, to cover not just the car payments, but also other bills he claimed he couldn't pay. Every time, he would assure me that this was just a temporary setback and that he would pay me back as soon as things got better. It became pretty clear to me that he was living way beyond his means. His car was his pride and joy, but he couldn't afford the payments. He wasn't even putting any money into savings. He was living paycheck to paycheck, and every time he needed money, he would call me, guilt-trip me into helping him, or say something like, "If you really care about me, you'll help me out." Now, here's where I think I might be in the wrong. A few weeks ago, Jay called me up and said that he was about to miss another car payment. He told me if he didn't pay up, the bank would repossess the car. He asked me for $3,000 to cover the payment, promising that he would pay me back in a few weeks. This time, I said no. I told him that I couldn't keep bailing him out, especially when he was the one who made the decision to buy such an expensive car in the first place. I pointed out that he should have thought more carefully about his finances before making such a big purchase, and now he had to deal with the consequences. Jake flipped out. He started yelling at me, calling me selfish and unsupportive. He said that I didn't understand how hard it was for him, and that I should help him because family helps family. He went on about how I was lucky to have my financial stability and that I was being heartless for not supporting him when he needed it most. According to him, I was the one who was being irresponsible by not helping him out when he was in a bind. He accused me of holding it over his head that I had helped him before, and now I was just being a bitch for saying no. I'll admit, his words stung. I hate confrontation, and I didn't like hearing my brother talk to me like that, but I still stuck to my decision. I told him that I wasn't going to help him again, and that he needed to face the reality of his situation. I also said that he needed to take responsibility for his choices and figure out a way to fix this himself. Jake hasn't spoken to me since that conversation. I've tried texting and calling a few times to check in, but he hasn't responded. I feel bad, but at the same time, I can't help but feel like I did the right thing. I've always supported him when I could, but I can't continue enabling his poor decisions. I think he needs to learn that there are consequences for the choices he makes, and that he can't keep relying on others to bail him out every time things go wrong. I've talked to a couple of my friends about it, and most of them think I did the right thing by standing firm, but there's this nagging feeling in the back of my mind that I might have been too harsh. Am I the asshole for refusing to help him out this time, even though he's my brother and he's in a tough spot? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she said I wasn't allowed to bring my kids? I, 30F, have a younger sister, Sarah, 26F, who's getting married in a few months. She's always been the golden child in the family, the one who could do no wrong, and everyone kind of revolved around her. I'm not bitter about it, but it's just always been the dynamic. I have two kids, Emily, 5, and Alex, 3, both of whom I adore more than anything. When Sarah first got engaged, I was genuinely happy for her. We have a decent relationship, but we're not super close. I don't expect to be her best friend, and I don't need to be the maid of honor or anything. But I expected a reasonable level of respect for the fact that I'm a mother and, well, I'm a part of the family. I was looking forward to the wedding. Sure, I need to find someone to watch the kids or bring them with me, but I figured we'd work that out closer to the date. A couple of weeks ago, Sarah sent out her formal wedding invites. Along with it was a note that said, "Sorry, but due to limited space and budget, we're not allowing kids at the wedding. We hope you understand." I get it, a lot of weddings have this policy, and I can understand why she might want a child-free wedding. I'm not totally thrilled about it, but I decided I'd find a babysitter for the day and go solo. However, things took a turn when I reached out to Sarah to clarify a few things. I asked if it would be all right to bring my kids to the ceremony, but not the reception, since the ceremony itself is outdoors and relatively short. I told her I would stay with them and wouldn't take up extra space at the reception. I assumed this would be a reasonable request. Again, just the ceremony. Sarah immediately got defensive. She said, "I told you already, no kids. Why are you making this harder than it has to be?" I was taken aback by her tone. I explained that my kids are still young and I don't have a lot of family nearby who could help out on such short notice. Plus, my husband, 34M, works late shifts and can't always be there to watch them. She responded by saying, "This is my day, and I don't want to deal with kids being disruptive. If you can't figure out a sitter, then you don't have to come." That stung. I tried to keep my cool, but I told her that if she didn't want to bring my kids at all, I wouldn't attend. She just said, "Well, I guess that's your choice then." I've been thinking about it a lot, and now I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. My sister's wedding is important to her, but I feel like she's being unfair. My kids are well-behaved, and I would never bring them if I thought they would be a distraction. I don't want to miss her wedding, but I also don't want to leave my kids behind with strangers or cancel plans that are important to them just to go to her wedding. It doesn't feel right to me. Some family members have said I'm being too sensitive, and others are supporting me, saying that Sarah is being unreasonable. One of my cousins even told me that Sarah is trying to make it all about her and overlooking the fact that you have a family of your own now. I don't want to make this a huge drama thing, but I feel disrespected. Am I wrong for refusing to go to her wedding just because she won't let me bring my kids? Let me know if I'm being unreasonable here, because I honestly feel stuck. AITA for not allowing my brother's girlfriend to move in with me, even though he's struggling financially? Okay, I'm in a weird situation with my brother, and I honestly feel like I'm the one being made to feel guilty, but I'm hoping you all can give me some perspective on whether I'm in the wrong here. To give you some background, I, 29F, have an older brother, Jake, 32M, who has always had a bit of a rebellious streak. Growing up, he made some poor decisions, dropping out of college, getting into a lot of bad relationships, and generally just not being very responsible. I, on the other hand, was always the straight A student, went to college, got a good job, and have always been pretty independent. About 2 years ago, Jake started dating Megan, 29F. At first, I thought she seemed nice enough. She's smart, friendly, and seemed to have her life together. But over time, I've learned that she comes from a pretty wealthy family, which Jake doesn't. And while that doesn't matter to me in theory, it has definitely played a role in their relationship dynamic. Now, Jake has always struggled financially. He's been in and out of jobs, tried to start a few businesses that didn't go anywhere, and has just been living paycheck to paycheck for as long as I can remember. He's always had an it'll work itself out attitude, which I find frustrating because he never seems to have a real plan. He's now at a point where he's severely in debt, hasn't been able to make rent for a few months, and generally feels like everything is falling apart. Megan, on the other hand, is doing fine. Her parents are well off, and she has a decent job in marketing. They've been together for 2 years, but things have gotten even worse recently, and it's been pretty tense between them. Here's where things get complicated. Jake called me last week, saying that he and Megan have been fighting a lot because of his financial struggles, and that he needed a place to stay. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured he just needed a place to crash for a week or two until things calmed down. But then he told me that Megan had actually suggested that he move in with me for a while since things weren't getting better between them. Now, this is where I started to feel uneasy. I live in a one-bedroom apartment. It's small, but it's cozy, and I've lived here alone for about 4 years now. I have a routine, and while I love my brother, he can be a lot to deal with. He's messy, he's loud, and he tends to bring a lot of emotional baggage whenever he's going through a tough time. I don't know if I have the patience or the space for that, especially in a small apartment. So, I told him that I didn't think it was a good idea. I explained that I didn't have the room and that I wasn't sure how I'd handle the stress of having him live with me, especially considering his financial instability. He seemed pretty upset and tried to guilt-trip me by saying that I was his only family who could help and that I should be there for him. I told him I understood that he was in a tough spot, but that I really didn't think I could handle having him live with me long term. He then mentioned that Megan had offered to help him financially, but he didn't want to rely on her and burden her with his problems. He said it would be easier for him if he could just stay with me for a while, and that maybe it would give him some space to figure things out. I stuck to my decision, and that's when things started to get tense. Jake accused me of not being supportive and said that I was just like everyone else who had ever let him down. He said I wasn't being a good sister, and that if I truly cared about him, I'd let him stay with me. He also implied that Megan had been supportive and understanding, and that he didn't understand why I couldn't just offer him the same kindness. I'm feeling guilty now because I know he's struggling, but I really don't think it's a good idea to let him move in with me. I don't think it would be good for either of us. I've worked hard to build my life the way I want it, and adding someone else's problems into the mix could really throw everything off balance. I also don't want to enable his lack of responsibility. He's in his 30s, and I don't want to feel like I'm always cleaning up after him. But my friends and family are divided on this. Some of them say I'm right, that I'm not obligated to take him in, and that I shouldn't sacrifice my own well-being just to make him feel better. Others are telling me that family is supposed to help each other, and that I should suck it up and let him stay, even if it's uncomfortable. They say that this might be the thing that helps him get back on track, and that I'm being selfish by not helping him. I just feel stuck. I don't want to lose my brother over this, but at the same time, I feel like I've been taking care of myself for a long time, and I don't want to lose my peace of mind. Am I wrong for refusing to let him stay with me? AITA? AITA for not attending my best friend's wedding because of her behavior at my wedding? I, 28F, got married about 6 months ago to my husband, Ben 30M. It was a pretty straightforward affair, small, intimate, with close friends and family. I had a best friend, Sarah, 29F, who I've known since we were in high school. She was my maid of honor, and we've always been incredibly close. However, ever since my wedding, things between us have been strained, and I'm starting to wonder if I'm in the wrong here. To give you some context, Sarah has always been a bit of a perfectionist. She's very detail-oriented, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes she can be a little much when things don't go her way. That's always been something I've learned to navigate, but it didn't really bother me until my wedding. I thought that since we were such good friends, she'd be a great maid of honor, and that she would make sure everything went smoothly. Leading up to the wedding, things started to feel off. Sarah started being overly critical of the venue I had picked out, even though I thought it was perfect for our budget and the vibe I wanted. She made it clear that she didn't like the venue, but I just shrugged it off. She also had a lot of opinions about my dress, the flowers, and even the food. At one point, she sent me a link to a better wedding venue, even though we had already locked in the one I chose. It felt like she was trying to take control of the wedding planning, and it really stressed me out. On the day of the wedding, I had a little freak-out moment because things weren't going exactly how I imagined them. It was a normal wedding day stress thing, but when I confided in Sarah, she told me that I was overreacting and that I was being dramatic. She said, "It's just a wedding. It's not that big of a deal." I was taken aback, especially since I thought I could rely on her for support, but I let it slide because, at the time, I didn't want to ruin the day. Fast forward to my wedding itself, and everything was going fine until the reception. Sarah was clearly not in a good mood. She was barely speaking to anyone, and when she did, it was almost in a dismissive tone. I noticed her taking a lot of solo breaks, leaving the dance floor and going outside to call someone, which I assumed was probably her boyfriend, Alex, 30M, but she didn't seem very present, emotionally, at least. I figured maybe she was just tired or having an off day. Later that evening, while I was talking to some guests, Sarah pulled me aside and told me that she needed to go home early. She didn't really give me a reason, but I could tell she was upset. I told her that she should stay and enjoy the rest of the evening, but she insisted she was done. I was pretty disappointed, but I let her leave. That night, I didn't think much of it. However, the next day, I got a long text from her. She basically told me that my wedding was too stressful and over the top. She said that she felt like it was all about me, and there was no room for anyone else to enjoy themselves. She mentioned that she didn't even get to talk to me much and that I was too busy with everything else. I felt hurt reading that. She was the maid of honor. Of course, I was busy. I had family and friends I had to greet and manage, plus the stress of everything going according to plan. I tried to address her concerns when we spoke, but it felt like she wasn't hearing me. She continued to blame me for her feelings, saying that I didn't prioritize her enough and that she felt unimportant. This really threw me off because Sarah had been one of the most important people in my life for years. Now, she was making it sound like I'd completely ignored her and that my wedding was somehow a burden on her. I ended up giving her some space after that, but it was clear things had shifted. We didn't talk as much, and I noticed she was distant. I didn't want to fight, but it felt like no matter how much I tried to apologize or understand her side, she wasn't accepting any responsibility for her own actions. Now, 6 months later, Sarah is getting married. She invited me to her wedding, but I've been grappling with the idea of going. Ben and I'd already planned to go, but I found myself resenting her for the way she treated me during my wedding. I know it sounds petty, but I feel like her behavior was unfair, and it left a sour taste in my mouth. I wasn't looking for perfection at my wedding. I just wanted her to be supportive, as I had always been for her. After thinking about it for a few weeks, I decided not to attend her wedding. I sent her a text explaining that I felt like our friendship has changed and that I wasn't sure I could be there for her the way I thought I could be. I mentioned that her behavior during my wedding really hurt me, and I wasn't sure how to move forward. She was furious when she got my message. She called me and yelled, saying that I was being dramatic and that I should just let it go. She said that her wedding was not about me and that I shouldn't make everything about myself. She also told me that I was being petty for not showing up for her when she needed me the most. I felt like she was just trying to make me feel guilty for having boundaries, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was right. Maybe I was being petty. At this point, I'm honestly torn. Part of me wants to make amends because we've been friends for so long, but another part of me feels like she hasn't owned up to her actions or how hurtful she was at my wedding. I've tried to talk to her and explain that I don't want to hold a grudge, but every time we talk about it, she just accuses me of being selfish and never truly listens to my side. I just don't know if I should have gone to her wedding or if I was in the right to not attend. I've never been in this kind of situation before, and I really value our friendship, but it feels like she has no interest in seeing my perspective. So, AITA for not attending my best friend's wedding after the way she treated me at mine? AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding because of her fiancé? 28F have been best friend with my friend Emily, 29F, for almost 20 years. We met when we were in kindergarten and have grown up together. We've been through everything: breakups, family problems, health issues, and even a couple of moves. Over the years, we've had our fair share of ups and downs, but we've always stuck together. Emily got engaged about a year ago to her boyfriend Jake, 30M, and the announcement came with mixed reactions from our friend group. Some of us were excited for her, while others, myself included, were more hesitant. I've never had a strong feeling about Jake, and I'll admit I was a little worried about how this relationship would pan out. Let me give you some context. I've always thought of Emily as a very level-headed, intelligent, and thoughtful person. She has a good career, solid friendships, and knows what she wants out of life. Jake, on the other hand, seemed kind of off. From the start, he was a little too cocky and seemed like he was trying too hard to impress everyone. It wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but it felt like a front. He would constantly talk about his success and how he was always busy with work or a new project. At first, I thought he might just be nervous, but over time, I started to notice some concerning things about his personality. For one, he was incredibly dismissive of Emily's feelings. I've seen this firsthand when she would try to express her concerns about things in their relationship. He would brush them off and tell her she was overreacting. There was one specific incident when Emily opened up about a disagreement they had over money. Jake had spent a significant amount on a luxury item without consulting her. When she tried to explain why that bothered her, he just laughed it off and made her feel silly for bringing it up. I could tell Emily was uncomfortable with how he treated her in that moment, but she just kind of shrugged it off like it was no big deal. Then there was the issue of how he treated the rest of us. At first, I thought I was just being overly critical. Maybe I was too hard on him. But the more I watched him, the more it became clear that he didn't care much about our friendship or my feelings. He would interrupt conversations to steer the topic back to himself, make inappropriate jokes that made people uncomfortable, and act like he was the center of attention. He even started making comments about my career. I'm a teacher, and how easy my job must be. One time at dinner, when I mentioned that I was planning a trip abroad, he made a comment about how teachers must be really lucky to get so much time off. That comment stuck with me, and it honestly hurt because I work hard and I know the job isn't as easy as he assumed. What really set me off, though, was an incident that happened a few months ago. Emily and I had planned a girls' night out, something we hadn't done in a while. When she told Jake about it, he seemed really unhappy about it. Emily explained that she needed a break from work and wanted to spend time with me, but Jake insisted that she shouldn't be going out without him. He practically guilt-tripped her into canceling our plans. And instead of enjoying her evening with her longtime best friend, she spent the night at home with Jake. It wasn't the first time he'd pulled something like this, and I was starting to wonder if Emily even realized how controlling his behavior was becoming. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, Emily invited me to her wedding. I was happy for her, but also apprehensive about the whole thing. She knew I wasn't crazy about Jake, and I had told her about some of my concerns before, but I always try to be as gentle as possible. I wasn't going to tell her that I thought Jake was an awful partner because I didn't want to undermine her decisions, but I also didn't want to lie to her. She still invited me to be part of her special day, and while I felt conflicted, I agreed to go. Then came the RSVP. I started thinking more about it and realized that I wasn't comfortable attending a wedding where I didn't feel like Jake was the right person for her. I felt guilty even thinking it, but I didn't want to be a hypocrite and pretend like I supported their relationship when I didn't. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I couldn't go through with it. The idea of sitting there, smiling, and celebrating their love when deep down I had reservations about him felt wrong to me. I sat down and wrote Emily a message explaining my decision. I told her that I loved her and cared about her, but I didn't feel comfortable attending a wedding where I didn't believe in the relationship. I told her that I had some serious concerns about Jake's treatment of her and how I had seen him treat her and others in a way that didn't sit right with me. I apologized for not voicing these concerns more directly before, but I didn't want to be the friend who overstepped. I told her I wasn't trying to cause drama, but that I couldn't bring myself to attend the wedding when I didn't think it was in her best interest. She was devastated. She called me immediately, and I could hear how hurt she was. She said she understood that I had my opinions, but that my absence would be a huge blow to her. She cried on the phone, telling me that this was the happiest she'd ever been, and that if I couldn't support her on her wedding day, then maybe our friendship wasn't as strong as I thought it was. She said she'd been nothing but open and honest with me, and she felt betrayed that I wouldn't stand by her on one of the most important days of her life. I felt awful. I tried to explain that it wasn't about her or our friendship, but about Jake. But she wasn't hearing it. She told me that if I couldn't respect her decision, then she needed time to think about whether she wanted to continue our friendship. She hasn't spoken to me since. Now I'm left feeling like I'm in the wrong. I know I should have been more supportive, but at the same time, I don't think I could have ignored how I felt. AITA for refusing to attend her wedding because of her fiancé? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she told me I couldn't bring my girlfriend? So some background. I, 28M, have a sister, Rachel, 30F, who has always been a bit of a perfectionist. Growing up, she was the golden child, the one who got the best grades, who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. I was always more laid back, a little bit rebellious in my teenage years, but overall, I'd say I'm a pretty easygoing person. As we got older, we definitely drifted apart, especially when she moved in with her now fiancé, Tom, 32M. I've always had a bit of a problem with Tom, not because he's a bad guy, but because I think he's a bit controlling. Still, I always respected my sister's choices and try to keep my opinions to myself for the sake of family peace. Recently, Rachel and Tom announced their engagement and started planning their wedding. I was happy for her at first and looked forward to supporting her on her big day. The problem started when she sent out the invitations. My girlfriend, Mia, 26F, and I have been together for about 2 years now. We met at work, and we've been through a lot together. She's kind, supportive, and someone I genuinely love. I was planning to bring her as my +1 to Rachel's wedding, since we've been in a committed relationship for a while, and I wanted to share this special day with her. When I got the wedding invitation, I immediately RSVP'd and included Mia's name as my guest. I figured it would be a no-brainer. After all, why wouldn't I bring my girlfriend to my sister's wedding? But a couple of days later, Rachel called me up, and this conversation turned into a huge issue. Rachel started off by saying she'd noticed that Mia was listed on my RSVP and that we needed to talk about it. At first, I thought it was just a miscommunication or maybe something about seating arrangements. But then Rachel dropped the bombshell. She told me that Mia wasn't invited. I was really confused, so I asked her why. She said, "It's nothing personal, but we're keeping the guest list small, and we have limited space. It's a very intimate event, and I just don't think it's appropriate for her to come, especially since you guys have only been together for 2 years." I was pretty taken aback. I get that weddings can have restrictions, but the way Rachel said it felt like Mia's presence would somehow disrupt the intimacy of the day. I asked Rachel if I was invited without a +1, and she said, "No, you're invited, but Mia isn't. We're really only inviting people who are immediate family or people we've known for a long time." I tried to explain that Mia was important to me and that, while I understood the guest list was limited, it felt weird to not bring my girlfriend to a family event, especially one as big as a wedding. Rachel seemed to get irritated, and she told me, "You know how I feel about relationships like yours. You're not even married yet, and I just don't think it's appropriate to bring her. It's not about her personally, it's about the principle of it." I was stunned. The principle of it. I didn't understand what she meant. Was she implying that I wasn't serious enough about my relationship with Mia to warrant her being at the wedding? That felt incredibly hurtful. But Rachel was adamant. She told me I could come alone or not come at all. It was her wedding, and she had the final say on who was invited. I hung up the phone, still in disbelief. I talked it over with Mia, and she was understandably upset. She said it felt like Rachel was devaluing our relationship and treating her like an outsider. I agreed, but I still wasn't sure how to handle the situation. I didn't want to cause a scene or make things worse between me and my sister, but I also couldn't just let this go. I decided to have one more conversation with Rachel. I called her the next day and told her how I felt about the whole situation. I explained that I wasn't trying to disrespect her wedding or her wishes, but that I wanted to be able to share this important moment with Mia. I reminded her that I had always supported her and been there for her, and I felt like I was being excluded from something that should be a celebration of family. Rachel's response was basically the same as before. She said it was her wedding and that I was welcome to come solo, but that Mia couldn't come. She said that if I was really serious about my relationship with Mia, I'd understand that it wasn't about her, but about keeping the event intimate. She even mentioned that some of our older relatives wouldn't approve of our relationship because Mia and I weren't married yet. At this point, I was fuming. I feel like Rachel is trying to use her wedding to control who I spend time with. And I was deeply hurt by how dismissive she was of my relationship with Mia. I told her that if Mia couldn't come, then I wouldn't be attending the wedding. I don't think that was an unreasonable request, but Rachel got really upset and said that I was making it all about me and that I was being childish. That's where things stand now. I haven't heard from Rachel since that conversation, and I feel like our relationship has been strained ever since. Part of me feels like I'm overreacting and that it's just a wedding, but another part of me feels like I'm being treated like my relationship doesn't matter, and I can't let that slide. I've been getting mixed opinions from other family members. Some say I'm right and that Rachel is being unreasonable, while others say I should just suck it up and go without Mia, since it's her special day and I'm being too sensitive. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding if Mia isn't invited? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.